Alright, the last type of question is on page 461 also. We had a lot of questions on this in class today about even, odd, and neither, whether or not a function is one of those three. So I'm just going to walk through these and explain them, like just the homework problem. In a different video I can actually explain a little more about evens and odds, but for now I'm just going to walk through. So 26, I guess before we get to that, over here on the side I'm going to talk about what they say in the instructions. The instructions say f of x, if f of x is the same as f of negative x, then we're even. And if f of negative x is equal to negative f of x, then we are considered odd. And if you're neither of those, then you're just neither of those. That is an option. You don't have to be either even or odd. So now let's look at 26. 26 just asks, is sine of t even, odd, or neither? Well, here's that negative angle identity concept. So if I chose sine of pi over 6, that means over here on my circle I went up pi over 6. We should all know that to be 1/2. Negative angle identity says, let's go down here. We're going to go down here, the same distance. We're going to call it negative t. And that's going to be negative pi over 6. So now we're going to evaluate sine of negative pi over 6. Well, if you look at negative pi over 6, we're still looking at the unit circle value of sine of pi over 6, which is 1/2. But because we are in quadrant 4 down here, that means that we are negative 1/2. So let's go back and look at this even odd definition over here. Well, if we take f of negative x, that is sine of negative pi over 6. That equaled negative 1/2. That happens to equal negative sine of pi over 6. So that's where we get our definition that sine is odd. So sine of negative pi over 6 is that f of negative x. That happens to be negative 1/2. Negative 1/2 is the same as negative sine pi over 6 because we know sine of pi over 6 to be 1/2. So if you take 1/2 to the negative, that is your sine of negative pi over 6. Alright, now that I've talked that one into the ground, cosine of t. Well, if we look at cosine of pi over 6, okay, sorry about that. Where were we? Cosine pi over 6. Okay, so here's our f of x, cosine pi over 6. Our question is that equal to cosine of negative pi over 6? Well, let's see. Cosine pi over 6 is square root 3 over 2. Pi over 6 is at quadrant 1, so cosine's positive. Question mark over the equals. Cosine of negative pi over 6. Okay, so negative pi over 6. We're down here again. Reference angle is pi over 6. So cosine is still going to be the square root 3 over 2. But we know that cosine is also going to be positive again. So, yes, in fact, cosine of pi over 6 does equal cosine of negative pi over 6. So if you look at that in terms of our definition here, that fits our even function. F of x, cosine pi over 6, is equal to cosine of negative pi over 6. So f of negative x. So that's how you get your even function. Now tangent, if you look at tangent, let's go see if we can fit it into this screen here. Tangent of pi over 6. Okay. Well, tangent pi over 6 is going to be, well, let's make it easier on us. Pi over 4. Okay, tangent pi over 4, 1. It's quadrant 1, pi over 4 for tangent is always going to be 1. So that's equal to 1. Let's take a look at tangent of negative pi over 4. Well, let's see. Tangent negative pi over 4, reference angle is pi over 4. So tangent is still 1, but because we're negative pi over 4 in the fourth quadrant, we know that tangent's negative. Well, that is actually equal to negative of tangent pi over 4. So let's take a look. Tangent negative pi over 4 puts us in the fourth quadrant, reference angle pi over 4, negative 1. If you look at tangent pi over 4, that's 1, but we have our negative out front, so that's negative 1. So let's go back up to our definition. F of negative x is right here, tangent of negative pi over 4, and that is in fact equal to the negative of f of x. Negative f of x, which is tangent pi over 4. So tangent is odd. Let's write those up. Odd, cosine even, tangent odd. Okay, so that's how you do those. Let me very quickly do question 32. It's a little bit more in depth, I guess. So 32, we've got, here's f of t. T plus cosine t. So if we find f of negative t, what that means is for every t that I see up in my first function, I'm replacing t with negative t. So that's negative t plus cosine of negative t. So we just added a step. We added this term, the negative t term. So negative t, we can't do anything with the negative t. So that's just negative t. But let's go back. Let's look at cosine of negative t. What does cosine of negative t equal? Well, cosine, whether it's positive t up here in quadrant 1 or quadrant 4, the negative t, cosine of negative t is the same as cosine t. Alright, so again, cosine's positive in the first and fourth quadrants, so it doesn't matter whether we go t or negative t. We can reduce cosine negative t to cosine t. What that means is my f of negative t doesn't equal f of t, right? Because f of t has a positive t here. It does match in the cosine side of things. Cosine ends up being cosine, but t ends up being negative t. So f of t does not equal f of negative t. What that means is that we are neither. It also does not equal negative f of t. Negative f of t, if you want to see what that looks like, negative f of t just means we're taking negative t plus cosine t. So then our negative comes to our t, then it distributes in minus cosine t. So notice that f of t and f of negative t are not the same. Here's f of t, clearly not the same as negative t. And f of t is not equal to negative f of t. So because none of these, f of t f of negative t, and negative f of t. I know it's confusing, but none of these three are equal. So our answer is we are neither even or odd.